So the Rebbe is Maamar here, Sifid Beis, the Chayis, and the Behirus that HaChassidus brings in to the Pirush of Idani, the way it is Al Pshat. That there's a fundamental difference between HaChassidus and all other Chalkei HaTeiras and other Chalkei HaTeira Pshat, Remes just said. So they deal with Meida'ani the way it relates to their Bechina. In Elam HaPshat, we deal with Meida'ani the way it relates to Elam HaPshat. And Remes deals with Meida'ani the way it's connected to Elam HaRemes. Al Derech, like each Chelik in Torah deals with Meida'ani the way it is in that, you say, Al Derech, that Parda Shuvah Torah is connected out to Elamis, Atzilis Bri, Tzir Asiyah. So each Chelik, each Chelik in Torah deals with the inner Meida'ani the way it is relates to that Elam. Pshat is connected to Elam Asiyah, so in Elam Pshat in a more general way explains Meida'ani the way it is in the Elam Asiyah. And the klal is that if someone learns the pshat of Meida'ani, so it's not going to give him a new emek, it's not going to give him a new chayis in the Inyona of Meida'ani the way it is al piremes. Someone learns the pshat of musik of Meida'ani, it's not going to give him a klarkai in the bir al pikabala. And someone that learns the bir al pikabala, the tchveis malchus, the sheirish of Azor Shom Babaker, it's not going to change, it's not going to give a chayis, it's not going to change the pirush of the Meida'ani the way it is al pshat. Shaking Chassidus, the Chassidus speaks Meida'ani the way it is mitzad yichid shebet Torah, mitzad the mahus of Torah, and the nekuda of etzem, the nekuda of mahus, the nekuda of yichid is that it's not another madrega. That's one of the main points that I was reading out of this Kuntres. Yichid is not another madrega. Yichid is the core and the essence of everything. It's beyond saying a certain form, a certain madrega in the neshama, or a certain madrega in Torah. It's the very core of what Torah is, and it goes beyond the concept of a certain siyur, a certain eifik. So one of the hagdoras of an etzem, one of the Inyona of an etzem is that b'shas of etnes gala der etzem, every single prat, nothing is negated inside the etzem. If the etzem is a certain siyur, and pshitis, let's say atzilis is not biyah, is not bria. So when atzilis is gala l'mata, vert eis mitzias, vert eis bria. B'shas the etzem etnes gala, it's not that vert eis atzilis bria, it's vert eis elamis. Each elam stays in his tzir, and the way they are in their tzir, there's a new mahus. A new mahus that's a schadish in there, because the etzem is the etzem of everything. That's the nekudas advar. So out there, as I'm speaking when you get to the Meida'ani, the b'chinas HaChassidus brings out Meida'ani the way it relates to Yichid Shebetei. Yichid Shebetei deals with the Yichid of Meida'ani. When the Inyona Yichid is nisgala, so it doesn't negate the other pshat of Meida'ani. It brings in a new chayis and a new teichen, even a new avana in the other b'chinas. There is not like Meida'ani. The Pashas Hadvar, the Musik Meida'ani of the Pshat is thanking the Eibusha that we're alive. Why do we say Nishmasi? Is it that Eibusha gave me my life and not someone else's life? What's the Dik Nishmasi? It says the Shmasi that a Yid thanked the Eibusha for the fact that he's alive. We're not thanking the Eibusha for the fact that we're Yidin. We're thanking the Eibusha for the fact that we're alive, that we could breathe, we could smell, we could live, that we're alive. But by Yid is Munach B'Pshitis, that life is not worth celebrating, has no value if it's not a life of a Yid. Now we're not thanking for Torah mitzvahs, we're thanking Pashit for Demis Mulet. But life without Dvekas Nelakus is Kemitzias. B'meila, I'm attacked the Eibush in 11, you thank the Eibush for the fact that you gave me back the life of a Yid. This only said the Chiddushim Nevesh you have such a hergish. We said the other Chalkei HaTeira, we said Nevesh Yoch Neshama Chaya, there was a Simon said the hergish and Simon said the Inyan. Simon said Nevesh Yoch Neshama Chaya, you can't say that there's no value to life outside it without kedusha. That's the Rebbe's in B'dakus. But the nekudas advarim is mitzad nefesh and ruach and neshama chaya. Since it's the nefesh is connected to a certain tzir of seichel, a tzir of midas. So the etzem in of seichel has a tfisas makim. You can't say that seichel is garnished. The minute seichel has any form of tfisas makim, so from them can ishtalshel vern that a person will be machshav stamazei academia. B'li keshet halukas at all. All that is when they get to the other chalkei HaTeira. Or chveis mesiras nefesh. So a yid could be miyaker the concept of someone giving away his life for an ideal. Nothing to do with kedusha. There will be a unique asachet even mitzad the b'china of chayil, which is let's say mesiras nefesh. Yichid has not tzir. It's not mesiras nefesh. It's not meichin. Yichid is a yid's home most is the Eibusher. And outside the Eibusher, there's nothing exists besides for the Eibusher. Mitzad the yichid is that gives you this hergish or this understanding that life is only worth thanking if it's the life of a yid. That's the nekuda for the Sifid Beis. Let's Sifid Gimel. It's Gmeish b'chilek ha'pshat shemeidan. Gmeish b'chilek ha'pshat zeh. That's Azay Dona Lashon. Interesting Lashon. Okay. Gmeish b'chilek ha'pshat zeh shemeidan. In HaChassidus mesifa eight pirush. It's not the pshat HaChassidus brings another pirush. Neisval Pirush HaPashut, Shegam Pichsidus Pirush Medani Kipshutai. He does shall Zarti Minishmas. We're not changing the pshat. Shemavhido Meiro Pirush Zatzman. It was a Gita Lichtik, it's a Clarkite. Why you Madgish Nishmasi? So it doesn't negate the Pirush HaPshat. Fakert, it brings in a Lichtikite. It's not Shelulit. May Nishmasi, Chayisa Shayudi, Vamay Oidase. So there's what we're going to see Bechelik HaRemes. Bechelik HaRemes is a very interesting Zach. And we get Kenu Bechelik HaRemes Adrush Vasei Shemid Anish Achsidis Meiro Mavhiros HaPirushim Eila Atzma. But I'm just to remember, the Rebbe is not stam explaining. Of course, the Toras Advarim here is to explain. Good is that Chassidus is a Chayis Chodeshim K'nei Yechida. When Yechida is Nimshach, it's everything becomes Nishtah. The premise of everything is this Gala. The Shesh of everything begins with Torah. So in order to understand how Chassidus is going to bring a new Chayis in Welt, the Rebbe is going to explain how Chassidus brings a new Chayis in Torah. But it's not a Gavorcha, but the Rebbe is explaining here what is touching in Aveda, what the Chassidus tutuf. The whole Arich is the Mashal in Sifid Beis. The Rebbe gives a pchina. And what's the difference between a Yid without being connected to Eirach Chassidus and a Yid which is connected to Eirach Chassidus? Without Eirach Chassidus, it is a Tzvakim Tevel. Volt is a Metzias. Being a Yid is much greater than just living a life without Yiddishkeit. But life has value. And Chassidus gives the hergish of Eined Malvali that there's only the Eivish. So the Rebbe teaches Eis in Aveda, not Stam as Eisis in Kabbalah, that Chassidus is a Nuam Shara from Ein Seif. But the Rebbe teaches Eis, a Nuam Shara from B'chinas Yechida Shubetayra, which is Megala, the B'chinas Yechida of a Yid, which means that Fisa, there's the hergish by a Yid, there's the Anach of a Yid, that Eined Malvali. That's up-touching in Aveda B'Payil, in Aveda Sa'adam, how Chassidus brings a new Nikuda in Aveda Sa'adam you don't have before. So it's up-touching the Indian in you have every prat that it explains. So the Rebbe is like that. What's the remes? So what's the Shemidana Pechilik remes that we say Yid waking up in the morning? So it's mechazik the Emunah. As I state, I think it's from Zayar, the Maamar of this Pirush, or from Medrash, from Zayar, or Relatious Rabbi that he brings it. But that that we say Rabbi Munasecha, the waking up in the morning is mechazik the Emunah. The Parshas Chesam Esim is a very far-fetched thing. The Eivish is going to be mechayed the Esim one day. It's psavaita zach. So I'm saying it's so a Yid wakes up in the morning. It's mechazik as a munah in Chesam Esim. It gives a chizik in his munah. So it says that Pashtus Haremes Shos Shloime Bekel the Chesam Esim Bli Abir Shachsidus is Zeir Avaita Remes. Remes Rochik B'Yesur L'Chur. It's Avaita Remes. So it says going through. What's the comparison between Shina and Misa? So Mesa was a Shini like Echad Meshishim and Misa V'Lei Misa Mamish. I mean, when you say Echad Meshishim that it's Shina is a 60th of Misa, doesn't mean Bashat in Kamos, that Misa is 60 times more than sleeping. It means an Eichus. There's the Tziduk HaNeshama Ba'Guf by Shina, and it's Echad Meshishim from Misa. An Eichus, it's a 60th from Misa. But Akapanim, so then, 60, I'm saying 60 times more. That Misa is Shalei Be'erech more. It's not just, it's Shalei Be'erech more on one hand. But there's even more. It's not only that that my Misa is a Silu Gomer within the Nefesh and the Guf, also not a Silu Gomer, but there's a Silu of the Nefesh and the Guf. By my Shina, it's a much more of a lighter Silu. It's much bigger in Arich. Means the neshama stays in the same tzir the way the neshama was before. When a person goes to sleep at night, his neshama doesn't change overnight. The neshama stays exactly the same life that you had before you wake up in the morning. The same machshavas, the zal Inyona. There was a siluk neshama ba'guf, however way that works. But there's no shina in the guf or in the neshama. Both of them stay the way they were before. Mashenkim shaseretz avegim miso. So it's a whole different situation. Means before, so the Rebbe touches up. Side the guf is chayzel la'afre. And there's a whole zichuch that happens to the guf. The chitzeni is the guf is chayzel la'afre, and all that's some loose stays. But the premise is there's a process of zichuch that the guf goes through. It's not that the guf stays intact, but the guf goes through a whole zichuch against transformation. So al-derech you have a al-derech says in Tanya v'nichi offer ve'efer. They have an eitz of wood and someone burns it and ashes is left. So there's an erech between the eitz and the ashes. So al-derech said the guf, what's nisha from the guf keidem atchia is rak etzem luz bilvad. And the Tchiyas HaMesim is not just taking the guf kameshu and connecting with the neshama. You're rebuilding the guf. And al-derech said we speak mitzad the neshama. Mitzad the neshama is nisrachik legami from the world of the guf. Yeah, you see a dug of am. If someone experiences something, if he's 10 years old or if he's 7 years old, doesn't make a difference. And then the way he is 80 years later. So, you go through so many experiences, a person changes. So the neshama is not stand this person overnight. The selva neshama, the selva mensch. So there was a chalishus in the kesher between the neshama and the guf. Masheken a mensch lachre said kedem atchia. The neshama is nesal in Gan Eden, and it goes from Elam to Nach Elam. The HaChassidus is Nahar Dinur. There's aliyas, a gavi aliyas that the neshama goes through. So that's a shini mehusi. So there's no dinim between shina and tchias hamesim. It's another in the ganze. Being bein the guf from etzem luz, and being mamshech the neshama back to the neshama she relate again to the physical body is a shini shalei be'erech. It says mizem muven shgam neshmase. And Shema v'aguf b'chlal him be'erech v'shayich hazel hazeh. Yeah, there's never a siluk muchlot between the nefesh and the guf. The nefesh, this is interesting as what the Rebbe says here. The nefesh and the guf always stay connected. So the fact that the guf goes through a shini, I'm saying it's not nish doi the art of tzedeming. I'm just saying the Rebbe says here that the same as the guf is the only thing which is left of the etzem luz. So v'chitzeni is that's physical body. Get the line of the air. It goes. It's chayzel after. So it has nothing to do with the nefesh. The Rebbe says there's a kesher between the neshama and the guf. The same way the guf goes through a full transformation, as them moving gam b'nishmase. Sheneshama guf him bechlal be'erech v'shayich hazel hazeh. Yeh shini ikri. I mean, the neshama goes through also a full process of a zichuch b'shleimus. B'zman atchia yibane me'etzem zeh guf shalim. But there is a gam neshama taver derech kama v'kam inyonim at shetibane v'dekones b'guf. Yeah, but I'm saying the Rebbe read them because the neshama v'guf are be'erech zel hazeh. So the fact that before tchias hamesim there's a certain zichuch the guf has to go through. The really has to go back to his etzem mahus, which is etzem luz, and from there rebuild into a guf shalim. The neshama also has to go through a whole new zichuch gomer before tchias hamesim. Yeah, shini mahusi. Al derech like the guf goes through a shini mahus, the neshama also goes through al derech shini mahus mamish. The only thing that's left is the nekuda mamish of the neshama, and it's going to rebuild for tchias hamesim. The Rebbe read this shtarum do, but I'm just saying this is the yes, it's an Indian basis. This is Indian, but it's not. My regel in Inyona was just that tchias hamesim and a person waking up in the morning are shalei be'erech zel hazeh klal. So there's a hint. A person wake up in the morning, so you weren't conscious of the whole night. So maybe it reminds you of tchias hamesim. Good, if we mechatzik zamuna, but we're dealing with Inyona amita apitayla. The Rabba, one of the pirushim which is brought in Rabba Munasecha that he's waking up in the morning reminds him of tchias hamesim. What's the dimmy? Here it's a very mild period of the nefesh and the guf, and there we're talking about rebuilding the whole guf and rebuilding the whole neshama, rebuilding the whole metzias sa'adam michadash. What's the dimim bichlal?
Is it also nefesh hamas or nefesh?
We're talking about the tchias hamesim.
Yeah, the opinion of the changes.
But the guf is going to become if in mezuchach.
I'm saying when you say that neshama changes, also not changes. I'm saying it's bullshit.
He goes through a zichuch. I don't know what. I don't think that's the Rebbe speaking about. They're saying the Rebbe Bahamas. Saying last Lavi, there's the immediate Tchias hamesim. There will be Pashat Taivus. Iver Gechazat Nachamo. The same Rebbe Bahamas. Yitzhar. I don't think it's going to be like that. There'll be Rebbe Chayunis. I'm Lubash Beguf. I don't think there's going to be. It'll be cool. I'm saying it will be Kulei Taiv Tchias hamesim. Right, you're saying no. I'm talking about nefesh hamas. What do you mean nefesh hamas? No, nefesh chayunis I'm lubish beguf. I'm saying, but the neshama and the guf go through a full zichuch before tchias hamesim. It's not like a person wake. It's not the Rebbe is saying it's not like I don't know how it works, but the yiras neshama lamata when a person is born, but it's a whole process. This is tchias hamesim. It's not stam as a. The Rebbe is not creating a new guf. It's taking the same guf and rebuilding it, but it's rebuilding it in a whole new way. There's them to get to the neshama. Once, I'm saying, when neshama and the guf, which did the Aveda together, so there's a yichud nitzchi. That's why there's mitchei hamesim. Why is the neshama going to again be in the star after the guf? Because they did the Aveda, the neshama did the Aveda b'yachad with the guf, and therefore they're going to get schar together. It's not stam. The shidduch was the Eibusher machat neshama and the guf as the Indian nitzchi le'lavad. It's not the. And the fact that it's again, there's going to be the slapshus of the neshama and the guf again. So the Sasha Neshama guf means whatever the neshama goes through, the guf goes through. They're both going to have a zichuch michadash. I mean, that's Siddha Birum in that. It's not I'm just saying it's not just b'chitzenius. I'm trying to say it's not just b'chitzenius. A guf chayzel afre, and then we have to rebuild it. Tchias hamesim is a whole new zichuch haguf. So in a whole new way from the guf. In the guf in a way that has no shaykhis tera, in a way they can have chaim nitzchim. It's a whole different eifin. Al there said the neshama is going to be nischadish, the ikra. There's Biurim, I'm saying there's Sichis, there's a Yud Shvat Sicha, I'm saying there's Maamar, the Keshel is. I'm just saying the Kovetz, it's the Rebbe read Amitis Inyan, not just Bechitzenius. So Shini Ikri, was meine Chiba, der etzem ze Guf Shalom, weil der ist gar nicht schauen, der kam Inyona, was die Bonne, die kann es begufet. Meir, der Mensch, was Cheshvan Shalom, the Chesam Meis, Zimur Aksim Baam. L'chor, it's a very far Varsimin. In other words, there's no connection between them. Wake up in the morning and Chesam Meis and L'chor are two say subjects which have no shaykhs one to another. Avayt the Simin. I'm saying someone because he woke up, he reminds himself of something which has really no connection. According to HaChassidus, so waking up in the morning is exactly the same mahus as Chesam Meis. Let's go to the Rebbe. A person waking up every single morning is exactly the same mahus, the same Inyan mamish as Chesam Meis. There's in Chitzonius there's differences. In Primis is exactly the same mahus. As there was going to be why? So what there's Chassidus is Shigam Bar Zar Nesham every morning HaChassidus Sholeirach B'Kishon Nesham Baguf Elegam Baguf Nesham Atzma. They themselves are Neschadish. As in the Segraim Shalchin Omru is brought in Rishonim. Shebechol Beker Nasa Adam Beri Chadasha from Medrash. Call Beker Nasa Adam Beri Chadasha, but Pashas Beri Chadasha because a person is refreshed in the morning. It's not that he's a new person. You're refreshed in the morning. But the Lashon state in Medrash, the person becomes a Beri Chadasha. Chadashim Lapkarim. The person becomes a new Beri. So the HaChassidus, it's an Inyan Amiti. HaChassidus explains that a person every single day, it's a new body and a new neshama. There's you say a schachus. What's the beer? There's a schachus every morning. So the Chorah Rebbe says over here a beer was kleptish in the ganze Zach. But the Rebbe says ki b'chol rega v'rega mishaves kol abriya michodesh mamish m'ma'aseh b'reish. Because the Rebbe says in Tanya that it's not the pshat that the Eibush created the world once, and once he created it, the world exists. They say a person makes a keli. When is he involved in activating the keli? While he's making it. Once it's made, it stays. So Al Teres, the Eibush created the world, and from then the world exists. The world is constantly dependent on the Eibush. They're continuously creating the world. It exists. Al Teres, that the fact that the Evan is flying in the air is always because the Keach Hayad is nice to them. It's not that the person throws the stone for a second and then it's in the air already. It's never in the a stone can't fly. A stone never flies. There's a Keach Ha'adam which is making it fly. So you always, and the fact that the stone is flying is always because there's a continuous Keach Ha'adam which is pushing that. Al Teres indicate this Havas Eilamis. So may the Kuntres that the fact that the world exists now is not because they were created a second ago, and now it's just continuing to exist. There's a Keich Halaki is continuously creating it. So Mela every second there's how, but the what's Hatas Satan we're taking up in the morning, number one, and second of all, is not a newest Havas. The fact that the world, you say, the fact that the world continues to exist is the Keich Halaki which is continuously being Mahava the world. But Hatas Satan, so we're dealing with waking up in the morning and Chesam Meis. So we come to the message Chesam Meis was Shloime b'Shuba Baker Dafke ki bitte vi zgas a chidish al brish misavas tom mein leish hu b'chol Baker Dafke. This is an important point. Was sagt that? You see, look at R94. It's a very sehr nicht gepasste Linie. But the Rebbe brings that this havos is this havos of yesh ma'ayin hamuchlet, and mele anything which is created yesh ma'ayin. So it's never in a way that once it was created, its existence is going to become independent. He's here now. He has to continuously be mischadish through the Keich HaMahab. As they state, whatever the biurim are, the chreicham apiseichel, why something goes mischadish yesh ma'ayin is always could only exist if the Keich HaMahab is continuously being mahabed. But that's one thing. But then the Alter Rebbe says, ach ein nimtza mashal kamayu. There's no mashal for yesh ma'ayin because the world is a yesh. The world is a mitzias. There's no mashal involved for a process of something happening from an ayin becoming yesh. Because ayin is mechut to mitzias. There's no ayin v'efes involved. Ayin is efes, is afisis mitzias. The world is mitzias. So there's no mashal for the so laharis b'chush like efes kotzeu. Shebechol yom yer b'chesh chalayla vareu kama yesh ma'ayin. So the Rebbe is touching over here that it's not stam b'chitzenius. The Rebbe says you don't have a good mashal for Savas Yishmayim. But every day, the fact that by night the world is dark and the world goes through a certain chlishas by night, and it's a schadish in the morning, a new light in the morning, so it's a dugma to Yishmayim. But the touch over here is that the kavan al yena is that all there brings the lashon yakiruk dolasi that all the Inyona of Elokus should be, Nivraim should have a Yediyah in the Inyona of Elokus. And therefore, the Eibush HaTazibah Shafin Develt, that he was Mamshich, that the Inyona of Elokus should have an expression, should be reflected in his Havas Ha'elam. The fact that Mayim is Yer, the Makim Gavel and Namuch, so that expresses the Eibush's Midas HaChesed. Or Eish brings out the Gvura. The Kavanah Yena is that all the Inyona of Elokus should be this Gala, should have an expression in Velt. So Al Derech Zeh, this Havas Habriyas Yesh Ma'ayin. Eibush created the world Yesh Ma'ayin Mamish. The Eibush Gavot, that the Inyan of Yesh Ma'ayin should also be expressed in Velt. We should see, but there should be a Amchosha, there should be a phenomenon in Velt of a Ishavas Yesh Ma'ayin, which that should be the Moshe, that should be the Hamchosha for Ishavas Yesh Ma'ayin. The Ma'ayin says there cannot be, the Inyan of Yesh Ma'ayin Gufa can't be reflected in Velt Kameshu Humamish, because the Velt is a Metzias. Chesed is a certain Tnua, a Metzias, of Amshach HaMayil Lamata. So you could have the Midas HaChesed expressing itself in the fact that Mayim Yerdim Megavel and Namach. But how could you have the process of an ayin from an ayin Zalver Nayesh? Ayin is where there's no Metzias. The world begins with Metzias. So the Alter Rebbe says the fact that the world, the fact that the world every night is dark, and the world, let's say, the functionality, if you say the fact that the world functions, the functionality of the world is nischalish balayla. Same way a person gets weak, so the whole tzmicha ala zachen, besides for a certain bali chaim, but most of the seder ha'olam goes through a certain hefsek balayla, a certain chalishus balayla, and then it refreshes in the morning. The ear refreshes, there's a refreshment in the morning. The tzmachim and the aver, everything is refreshed in the morning. So that's a bitui to this Havas Hashmayim. How is that a bitui? It means be'etzem, the fact that the world gets weaker, because be'etzem the world is an ayin ve'efes mamish. Be'etzem the mitzias ha'olam, bechlal doesn't contain within itself existence. And the fact that it exists, because the Eibusher makes it be. The fact that the world gets weaker, be'chitzayni is the only way. The fact that the world is an ayin ve'efes could be expressed in the mitzias ha'olam is in the fact that it gets weaker. The fact that it gets weaker is just a symptom of bitui to the fact that the world mitzadatsim is ayin ve'efes mamish. So the Eibusher Gevol that the fact that the world is a mitzias yesh ma'ayin should be reflected in the mitzias ha'olam. The fact that be'etzem it's an ayin ve'efes, mitzad the nature of the being itself, he's an ayin ve'efes mamish. And his existence is because the Eibusher gives it existence. This truth should be in his gal in Velt. Should be Viken is his gal in Velt. The Velt's very nice. Be yesh ma'ayin. The Indian commercial who should be in his gal in Velt is Kener Zayin, because the world is a mitzias. Ayin ve'efes cannot be nirgash in a world the way it's a mitzias. But the ayin ve'efes is nirgash to the extent that the world gets shvacher. The chalishas sheba'elam balayla is an expression of the fact that the world mitzadatim is ayin ve'efes mamish. And the fact that the world is chadash every morning, gets a new freshness, gets a new lebedekeit in the morning, that's a bitui that the Eibusher gives that makes this ayin zalver nayesh. See, during the night it was shvach, it was weak. How mitamol did it become fresh? So because the Eibusher doesn't have a yesh ma'ayin. So be'etzem the weakness of the person, the weakness of the world in the night, is a bitui of the ayin. It's not just the Eibusher created a mashal. That's the expression of the fact that the nikar is ayin ve'efes mamish. And the fact that it's chadash in the morning is an expression to the Inyan of that the Eibusher is mahav the yesh. That even though it's an ayin, machta from the mayesh. So the Alter Rebbe says the Inyan of person waking up in the morning, or the world being this chadash, is b'pnimius the Inyan, the isgalos, the bitui of the Inyan of a Savas Yesh Ma'ayin. Savad, the world is always dependent on the locus. The world is always mitzad atzmi and ayin. And the fact that it exists, because the Eibusher continuously makes it exist. But the world, but in a regular second of the day, what's the agdara of this second? It's a mitzias. Mash'ek, when a person wakes up in the morning, waking up in the morning, which tmuras being weak, you get that's the weakness is an expression of the ayin of the nivra, it's the mitzvah inyan, and the waking up is an expression that the Eibusher is mahave and makes from this ayin ayesh, takes from this weak nivra mach from the mayesh. So waking up in the morning is mitzvah inyan is havas yishmayim. I'm saying that it says B'rei Chadash. We're saying in the morning, not in the afternoon.
I'm saying is that our like?
No, I'm saying that's very Inyona in there. I'm saying is the Rebbe saying that the Alter Rebbe says b'chab and get Welt that Efes Katseyu. You see that in the order, I don't know which number it is, but the Gemasi Lamata you can't have a dugma herisi, you can't have a riyah b'chush of yeshma'ayim. But Efes Katseyu, what's Efes Katseyu of this Inyan? Shebachol yoyim Meir mechesh chalav. That's mitzias ha'olam. Mitzias ha'olam vert shvacher by nacht. And then there's a ischachas chayis in the morning. The Rebbe says lefi zeh also when you get to a person. This is neshama and guf. That's like to the Rebbe talk. There are the fact that it says in Sfarim that a person if a person goes to sleep in the middle of the day, I think that means Shulchan Aruch Mefurish. One of the timing that Alter means Shulchan Aruch why we wash Negalas in the morning is we said Berei Chadash. I think the Rashba. Or there's 3 timing brought. One of them is Berei Chadash. If a person sleeps by day, he doesn't get this in Berei Chadash. So it's also an episode with if a person's up a whole night, also it doesn't come Berei Chadash. But exactly, I'm saying that this is the mitzvah Inyan. Exactly how the Pale Mamash people have a different seder. That's nishving in them Netzach in the Sikhet take care of that issue.
Isn't the word of the is coming from the Cheshach? Usually comes from not from Cheshach.
Where's Mimtzias coming from Cheshach? I'm saying
no, that's the word. That's why it's like Yishvan. It's 2 opposite extremes.
No, we're saying the light. They say the pashas. The light. There's the shemesh goes through its sivuv.
And some of the other thing, it's Meir Cheshach from the Cheshach to get to which is 2 opposite extremes that don't clap. So it's the Yesh and Ayin.
Maybe that's not what it means.
It's coming from nowhere. It doesn't make sense.
Well, it doesn't make sense that there's light in the morning. The shemesh is
and then it just comes light from nowhere.
From the shemesh.
Huh?
Mitzad the cheshach. You're saying the word is even though b'mitzias, it's the sun coming back.
I mean, obviously, yeah, it's natural, but it's.
Well, that's what it means. Meir cheshach. Okay, could be. You have to see the lashon. I remember that's lashon in Kuntres. But I'm saying, but here the mashmos advarim is. The Rebbe's lashon. We come in rest chesed mitzvah lashon over baker. That ki bitte v'izgalas achidish labriya shem savat ha'manesh u'b'chol baker dafke. But everything also when you get to a person goes to sleep, he's weak, and then he wakes up. So the weakness is because the person mitzad atzmai is not by definition in existence. Immediately he gets weak means because a person means the fact that he exists is a davar neisif. Someone gave you existence. So the weakness stems from the fact that we're be'etzem ayin ve'efes. That be'etzem we're not things that exist. We're not intrinsically existent things, and we're intrinsically ayin, and maybe we get weak. And the fact that where do you get fresh from? But sometimes a person goes to sleep and then he wakes up recharged because that's the Eibush gives from the ayin machta yesh. Could be right with the Rebbe Chesed. You have to see the. No, Zika Semer is not yesh ma'ayin. There's a couple reasons why Zika Semer is not. Zika is just a dogma for what's the pshat that it's totally befin timidi, not the. The Rebbe is saying the Eibush machta rot ma'ayin liyesh, and the Ratzna Eldin is that all the Inyona of Elokus should be the emes should be nisbat involved. The truth that the world is an ayin should be nisbat involved. That's not emes that the world is ayin ve'efes mamish, and the fact that it exists because the Eibush makes from an ayin zilvar neyesh. This truth should be expressed in the world, but how it cannot be expressed in the mitzias. It's ayin. So the Alter Rebbe is expressed. By night, the weakness, that's the bit of the ayin shabayu. And by day, the waking up is a bit that the Eibush macht from the ayin, macht from the fonayesh. It could be right with that area. I have to see the lashon of the I'm saying in weakness and refreshing, it becomes a more. So this is not according to the Friedrich Rebbe's beer or medani. According to this is mevayer. This leis doesn't do it yichida. The Rebbe is just saying that Chassidus, Toras HaChassidus gives a chayis, gives an air in every level of medani. Even the level of remez of medani, Chassidus get rein chayis. How we get to rein chayis? But Chassidus brings out that Emes waking up in the morning is tchias hamesim. Is that the guf wert von a ein wert the guf hamesim. Punkt is with tchias hamesim is gemäß Havas Hashmayin mamish. A yid waking up in the morning is tchias hamesim mamish. So b'meile is mechazik as a morning tchias hamesim because a yid sees yesh ma'ayin every single morning. Now the Rebbe adds here a very stark zach. But mitis hergish zeh was at gida yichida dafke. You can learn a beard in time. Now there is mevayer that every morning, but that a person should. What do we say? What's the beard of Remes? That a yid wakes up in the morning. It's mechazik as a morning tchias hamesim. The Rebbe wants to say, in order to be'emes live this pirush, this is before that Chassidus is mechayed other pirushim. So we have a nice pirush. It steht in Medrash, the Rabba Munasecha, person waking up in the morning is mechazik as a morning tchias hamesim. You say, is it like true that a person waking up in the morning strengthens the morning tchias hamesim? Ayid is saying what gives him avados? As if sein tchias hamesim, jeder Tag wächst sich auf in the freeze, that tchias hamesim. See, is that it? Or so the Rebbe says, mitzad yichida, the Chassidus gives a yid a hergish that when he wakes up in the morning, he should see that this is a miniature tchias hamesim. The mailer he sees in front of his eyes every single morning tchias hamesim. So it's mechayah the pirush. It's not upside emes somewhere. Chassidus gives a life to this pirush that the emes waking up in the morning is mechazik yid's a morning tchias hamesim. Because not anymore a vayta zach. He sees every single day that the Eibusher is ma'av me'ayin liyesh mamish. Now, this hergish, I used to love this the beer of Chassidus. To have a hergish, that's dafke mitzad gila Chassidus. So it says a very stark ezak. But meet this hergish zemas at gila yichida dafke. I'll just say, just Bapa one koder. You see, what's Alter Rebbe saying here? What's the Rebbe saying here? B'chitzeni is advarim, a person gets weaker, or the world gets dim by night. It gets ogeshvak by night, and in the morning it's refreshed. There's two ways of looking at it. You can look at the b'chitzeni, is that Pashat, the world, it's the same existence as yesterday. Things are recharged. Things get weaker, they have to recharge, they have to take a break, a pause, recharge, vacation. Or the Alter Rebbe says that the fact that the world gets weaker, that's because Be'etzem, Bechlal doesn't have existence itself. The fact that it gets weak is a biti that it's Bechal and Ayin Ve'etzem. And the fact that it's Nischadish is a biti that the Eibishter gives it, the home is that it has because the Eibishter gave it. Who's going to see in getting weak, who's going to feel in getting weak that it's just getting weak, and waking up is just taking a pause and refreshing? And who's going to see in it an expression that the world is Ayin Ve'etzem? That's totally what a person's Hanach is, what his reality is. See in Pashal Al-Pinigli you have that who has to, the Maitzi has to bring a right. Someone says according to the Pashtas. I'm saying that things are the way they are regularly. Someone says that there was a minion 12:30 Shachris. It doesn't bring a right that you were saying is true. But if someone says that Punkt for a full week straight, everybody davened before 11 o'clock. It was no minyanim. They have to bring a right. Even if it's against the Chazaka, he has to bring a right. But someone that says according to the normal thing. So the shaila is, you're coming and telling me that you're waking up in the morning, the fact that you're getting weak is an expression of the fact that you're ayin ve'efes mamish. So Meir takes it to say that. The world exists. The world doesn't exist. What do you see? In order to say that the world doesn't exist, you have to have a strong raya. The fact that you see that it gets weak, so you see that it gets weak. Meir takes it to say that's a raya, that the world with pnimis is an ayin ve'efes mamish. If the chazaka is, if the reality is that there is a Welt, and that's your mitzvah. So when are you going to have and your hergish, I'm saying is, a person's hergish is based on what his reality is. If your mitzvah is that there's a Welt, so kol zman there's no hechrich gomer to say that the world is ayin ve'efes, so that your hergish is going to be a sedah Welt. If there's a hechrich gomer for ayin ve'efes, that's then it's ayin ve'efes. Masha'enkin, if your mitzvah is not the Rebishter. The fact that this world is a chiddush. It's done Eibishter. The Eibishter is Ein Sof. What's happened to the Avel? There's the because the Eibishter is Ein Sof. What's the Talmud? There's a world here. See, the Eibishter didn't want this question for Avel. Then the minute you see any weakness in the world, that's mechazik your kozman. When the world is with takeoffs, you have no it's the Avel. You have no right. You have no brain. So the world is with the concept takeoff. The minute you see any weakness, that's a right that the world is ayin ve'efes. So the hergish, in order for a yid to feel when he wakes up in the morning that it's a bita of the fact that the whole mitzvah Elam is talia on the Eibishter and be'etzim the world is an ayin ve'efes, that's totally what a person's hanach is. What's the chazak in his life? Who's the mitzvah and who's the muktzah? Shloime said that someone went over to I don't know the pratim. His Rebbe asked him, what did you gain by the Baal Shem Tov? So he said that till he went to the Baal Shem Tov, it was clear to him, before he went to the Baal Shem Tov, he thought about the Eibishter all the time. Before he went to the Baal Shem Tov, he thinks about himself all the time. So what's the issue? What's the pshat? So before he went to the Baal Shem Tov, that he exists was never bothered. What bothered him in the whole back and forth, whether the Eibishter exists or not. That's how I'm trying to talk. And it's the question of the Eibishter does exist, doesn't exist. Once he went to the Baal Shem Tov, the Vadah says the Hasidah Eibishter. There's an Eibishter, and the Eibishter is Ein Sof, and he's the Amitas Hamtzias. The question is whether I exist or not. So that became the struggle is where's the space for me in the picture? Before that, with the Erzdah, where the Eibishter could fit into my Mitzias. So they were saying, says Amitas Hergish means to see in waking up in the morning. Guess how I say Shema Ayin, who mitzad gila yichid dafke. Like the Rebbe says before, this is another bita in Aveda. It's like this. Da b'chines nefesh ruach neshama chaya. Mikivan shehem atzman mitzoyim ba'olam. There is olam in you say in exclamation mark. It's not the olam pashat. We're not dealing with nefesh of the nefesh bahamis klippus. Not dealing with a nefesh who's gefinzich im Welt. We're saying they're mitzias. They're in darga of mitzias. Darga of mitzias. B'darkas ma'it. We see there's talking about nefesh is nasiya, ruchnis, ruach zitzira, neshama is bria, chaya is atzilis, elam is nailim. But it's all shinda mitzias. It's not. There isn't only the Eibishter. There's the Eibishter was neisen makim ta mitzias. Neisen makim ta eres the elam atzilis, chachme, gvuret, certain milas. So the dargis of Nefesh Ruach and Neshama Chaya, they relate to Elokus the way Elokus is already a mocker for a Metzias. Not the way Elokus is mufshit in the whole category of Metzias. So mitzad hamashin nirgash eslen the pshitasu, what's their reality? What's the darg of Nefesh? I'm saying that to say that's not hicha even. I'm saying a pashas. A yid is a Metzias ba'elam and he serves the Eibishter. He's something. His Metzias, he has a Metzias. Even in everything, Inyona yid is Eivet Hashem. A great yid. Didn't the Eibishter na ganze Tag. He's a Metzias. And then there's an Eibishter. As is the shta, that's not his Metzias. That's not his truth. That's not his pshitis. His Metzias da. That's his Metzias. That's his natural sense. That's what he is. And then it's the Chmizbein that there's an Eibishter. The Eibishter and be'etzem legabi elokus ein edlovade. And it's Meir b'em leki, which is Shel, his Metzias. That's not his reality, but the fact that there's an Eibishter which is Ein Sof, that's not his Metzias. His Metzias is Elam. It's Elam Atzilis, Elam Abriya, Elam Aitzira. Was for a darge Metzias is anders sein. And then there's an Eibishter which legabi him kol hakamei kol achshav. Legabi Ein Sof to nishtakim vel. But that's not who he is. That's not the darge of Nefesh what it is. So its Metzias is Elam. And the Hergish of Elokus, Ein Sof, that's the Berneis of the Metzias. That's when they get it. Mashiach doesn't pshit this. What's their Metzias? What's their tfisa? The Metzias Eilamis. Hergish ain't shu Metzias Eilamis. There was not only dealing with Eilam Hazar. That the Bechad is known as the Svakim Tavel. Sudan Eibishter and Ein Edom Avada. There's nothing besides for Elokus. I Eilamis. That's his kavanah. There's no Shivis Tavel. So Hergish ain't shu Metzias Eilamis. Chom Metziusim is Chadesh is Tamid Ma'ayim Vebesam Muchlet Hu B'derech is Chachas Eslam. That's a chiddush. That's not what their reality is. If it's not what the reality is, so when there's, say, someone that is a rational person, and his tfisa is that the world runs according to a certain structure. That's the way he lives. He's a person that needs structure, and he believes in structure. He's a rationalist as well. And then he sees something that when he sees a nes kriyas yamsov, that it's something that's beyond. He has to be made something which is beyond. But anything that he could explain, you have a certain nissen that are not say there's no achiz in teva mamish. Anything that can explain that punkt that hin aher will be able to be masber. The Gemara is the nitzach na milchama even Chanukah's rab me'ad ma'atim. You could explain sometimes that the rabbim punkt they were ready and the ma'atim punkt had bigger courage. There's ways to be masber. Certain types of nisim you can be masber if you really want. So that's if someone that's a rationalist. So calls money has no raya hechrich to say that it was a nes. He's going to be medeichek at kol hadeichkim in order to keep his pshitas. Masha'ink it's someone that his hanach is that the Eibishter for the world. The whole world's running it. The Eibishter is running the world, and the Eibishter betzim is Ein Sof. And he convinced himself that there's a musik of teva. The Eibishter is muslavish in teva, and he's mechayah the world certain seder. And Torah itself says Baruch Hashem Al Kol Asher Tasa. But that doesn't sit with him well. The Eibishter is Ein Sof, and he's the one running the whole world. So the minute he sees any chlishas in teva, right away he sees it. The Eibishter is running the world. You have someone. The minute you meet someone, says you have these people. A lot of people that have a lot of stories. This one, this guy, that guy. Other people don't have many stories. Sometimes there can be different reasons, but sometimes people have according to where your anacha is, vert meises. I'm saying if your anacha is that be'etzem whatever you're doing, the Eibishter is running it. Sachako when so any little thing that you see, it's already a reminder that this that. So where the person's hanach is. It says, that's the Rebbe's nekuda. Yichid is not a metzias. Not even a metzias the kedusha. The Rebbe retach in ilmus in not only in metzias of Elam Hazim, even in metzias the kedusha. It's mishtashel. Someone which the pchinas ruach is the metzias of Elam Hayitzirah. But b'meila yid, even a yid at tzaddik, but without the HaChassidus, gets vui found in the smokim tzavelt. The akara that there's no erech to velt, das hat nicht. It's not his reality. Chid is the way a yid is mushish, the way a yid is one with the Eibishter before the whole concept of metzias. So don't know the Eibishter. There's no metzias. Yichid alone is not a metzias. Inyona is alakus. Inyona is the etzem of the Eibishter. It itself is not a tzir, and the b'meilem, but vas life by yichid the Eibishter is beyond any concept of metzias. So chitzad yichid nirgash es levip shitus shkol elam esem ayin ve'efes hamuchlut. V'chom metziusam uchidush gomer shemischadish tamid b'chol rega v'rega. So I was saying mitzad gila yichida HaChassidus is already that a yid could start living his life with the hergish of yichida. So a yid could see waking up in the morning that it's the bit of Yesh Ma'ayin Mamish. I mean, it's not only man can learn Chassidus verstehen, was steht in Tanya that the Nivrim Selatzim is Ayin Ve'efes, but the Rebbe is saying here, a Yid should have a hergish, that the Nivrim Selatzim is Ayin Ve'efes. Yeah, we can look in there just to see the R9. The Rebbe brings from the Rebbe saying, I'm saying is there's two parts. We're dealing with the Rebbe there's a person Posh dimension which lives with our Nachas of his Nefesh Bahamas. The Rebbe is saying here a Maile, even a Yid which is in touch with his Neshama. But there's different levels of the Neshama. There's the Neshama, there's Nefesh in the Neshama, Ruach in the Neshama. Dargesh is the Neshama, the way the Neshama is Mushish and Elam Asal Yen, and Elam Asal Kedusha. Mitzad that Darge, Elam is a Metzias. So Elam Atzilus is insert Metzias, and then there's a Shtashlos Gadol, Elam has it. If your tfisas, if your shadish, in which pchin of the neshama is maybe the neshama, the way it is connected to Elam Atzilus, so when you're living in this world's going to be is a Metzias. Elam has is going to be a Metzias. So the hergish that there's no shtak in Metzias, it's not the Rebbe. And the fact that there's a world is a chidush muchlat. It's a pelle that there's a world. The Eibush ain't safe. He says someone that behim is mer. The Eibush ain't safe. It has a hard time. What do you mean there's esses firis? An ain't safe. Wie is gewarn esses firis? It's a constant question. So the Eibush ain't safe. So what's the pshat that there's a reality totally outside of his presence, a reality of a world? Same as the Akasha. The Eibush ain't safe. How is there esses firis? How would he limit himself? The answer the Eibush is blikvul. If he wants, he can limit himself also. But that's always something that's it's hard. We can't sit with it. So I was saying a yid the behim is mer hergesh haychida. The fact that there's a mitzias, he never gets comfortable with that aspect, with that reality. There's a mitzias, nothing to do with the Eibishter. So it's what the pshittas behim is that there's an Eibishter, and the fact that there's a mitzias is a chiddush. It's a pella behim. But Mela, the minute he sees a weakness in this mitzias, so he's happy, he's comfortable with that, and he falls back to his truth that there's nine v'efes. So as a yid is mit uvek zich in the free, he'll see that chiyas amazing.
What did you say, like, Hargasha, idea?
I'm saying Hargasha, that's what I'm saying. A yid will have a hergish, that's not a Hargasha.
To notice in there is not that idea.
I'm saying is someone, we're saying someone that doesn't learn Chassidus. The world, so the world works in a certain function, and the Eibishter functions that way. There's Torah, there's Schusim, Averis, Mitzvahs, they have a whole system. So that's his world. The world is that there's a so you learn Chassidus, the Eibishter is safe, Lam called Inyona Medisi Yuklal. And then, but Ava became the Eibishter limited himself to a certain system. What's the pshat? Chesed, Gvura, Teferes, Chachma. He's not limited all these things. That's a question. It's a question if your reality, if it's real to you that he's ain't safe, so then it's a question. If your reality is that everything is rational, the Eibishter also works according to a certain system, and he's also justice according to Apiseichel is justice. So then you have no shaylas. I'm saying, so a yid through learning Chassidus could get can margir zayin that l'chura the Eibishter ain't safe and hu levadi hu. I mean, so how is there a reality independent of him? How is there a world which stands out and his presence is not felt? By me to say if a person learned to be zdafter zayin, and I'm not saying that I'm saying not only learning, but the concept that you're learning could be nirgash by you mitzad yichid. That mitzad ain't safe, there's no necessity for a mitzvah. And Eibishter just ultimate ain't safe. Nothing could contribute anything for it, and no mitzvah has any value legabi. So pertakasha, what's ever created a world? What's ever is about? Not a logical question, but same way a person can say two things don't stick together. A hergish. That's what I mean hergish. I'm saying a person feels and two things don't they're not misyashav alaliv. That's what I mean to say a hergish. A yid has a hergish in Ein Sof. It's not misyashiv that the Eibishter created a world. And over then steht in Torah the Eibishter geschaffen a world. So that's what the Chassidus means. There's a hechlich to say that there's a world, but it's never going to sit with him comfortably. That the Eibishter with the world makes sense. It's always because the Eibishter is not limited, and therefore, if he wants, it could be a world. So as a yid, which by him, the fact that there's a world is mufrich, and it's a pellet by him that there's a mitzias outside of Holocaust. As a yid is going to, the minute he sees a weakness, he's going to see right. I'm saying a lower marshal. You have. Es kann sein bei Yidden or gewesen Akum Rakten bei Choli. So Yid knows that the gewesen Makam Mikdash and Akum Rakten bei Choli. Wie can that as a That's a question. How could the Eibishter let such a thing happen? You have all the explanations. Lepoil, certain things are it doesn't sit well. So I'm saying the Rebbe is saying here that I had to learn Chassidus. The fact that there's a Metzias and there's a whole world that's functioning outside of Holocaust doesn't sit well because the Eibishter ain't safe. Whatever the Biurim that we learn. And Lagabi Elokus, B'chlal does not assist the Kula Kamei Kalachshit. If he is the Ganza Mitzvah, the Eibush is the truth, he's the truth, and the Pile, besides for him, there's nothing, there's a whole world functioning, devoid of his presence. And Ayid, B'meila, the minute you see it's a little weakness in the world, that's you're always looking for that. You weren't comfortable with the Chiddush, you were mucher to say the Chiddush. The minute the Hechach weakens, so you're back to your Kav. And I'm saying is they use the example of a nest, which is a mlubish b'tev. So it's a mitzias tach Hashem. If someone's really going to want to convince himself, so it happens to be that they found all the oil, one oil they didn't find. But a yid that his pshitas is a nest, the Eibush runs the world, he's going to see right away that it's Yad Hashem. He's not going to see the... Yeah, it's more than that, but... Yes, they're not going to put in them. So there's many things, just... the Rebbe speaks about it in the famous, the Pasuk says when they get to the Adam and Eretz Yisrael, there were Adam B'tzuras, the famous Amemi Pana. It means a couple of times that there's Adam B'tzuras B'Shamayim. It's a shtet that are, the walls go until the sky. So the Gemara in Talmud, that B'shalish Pa'amim, the Pasuk speaks Divrei Guzman. Pasuk at Megazim given, Divrei Guzman. The Pasuk was Megazim. What's the pshat? The pasuk is exaggerated. The pasuk says to Toras, they were exaggerated. What's the pshat? So the Rameh Pano says that, but mitzvah Inyan, you see, the gvura of these cities were unproportionate to regular human gvura. There's human takeif a big dira, and then there's a certain shtet that the gvura was totally unproportionate to human gvura. So, Bamitis Inyan was a Getach Gvura, was a Shemayim Dik Gvura. The Eibusher's Gvura is unlimited Gvura. Unlimited Gvura can't be expressed now. Unlimited Takeif cannot be expressed Kameshu and Elam Haz. Elam Haz is limited world. But so, in what can it be expressed? That it's unproportionate to the Gdarim of Hell. So, Bamitis Inyan was Aram Sirs Shemayim. We said, what's the Mahus Inyan that was the Takeif of these cities weren't regular. It was a Takeif which is beyond Shemayim. L'payol, the ideal what it was, or the most what it was, wasn't able to be seen. What I'm saying is, a person waking up in the morning, or the world getting weaker, but Pnimius, this is a bit of the fact that the world is Ayin Ve'efes. The Ayin Ve'efes Kameshu cannot be expressed in the world. So this is the ultimate that it can be expressed. But that's the truth of this Mitzvah. And the question is, who's going to say something unproportionate? Who's going to say it's the world is just a little bit more? Who's going to say this unproportionate is a raya that it's from a different caliber of the government? So the question is what your anach is. If your anach is that b'chada who rules a pella, so whatever doesn't work within the mizgeres of the world, has to neighbors. Or mash'egin, if your gather is the world, so whatever could fit in is going to fit in. Whatever is going to fit in with your chazak is going to does the nekuda be from klal.
I just have to say how. Every day, so
Sagst du?
like you have to say how every day.
Okay,
so,
but that's
so I'm saying, like so, like there has to be a point where this is happening to work.
I verstehe, but the truth is that's exactly the point in a way, because halal is when there's something which is bleakful. Does it the mitzvahs? The fact that the world is ayin ve'efes, does it the mitzvahs? It's not a yetzim and a klal. This is the mitzvahs. The world is as ayin ve'efes, the Eibush creates it deshmai. That's not nes. That's not bleakful. That's the truth of reality. Who could be margish this truth? B'shlemusay is a yid that has to do with previous aday. Saying halal every day is inside, but then when there's this galus have bleakful, it's not chavor. There's this galus ain't so.
What would be the difference between Yechida and Atzilus in the Lekus B'Pshitas, like the Rebbe brings in the Aras?
No, so the Atzilus bedakos is the way Lekus is a makar l'mitzis.
I understand, but I'm saying when we bring the Dugma in Atzilus, Lekus is B'Pshitas.
Right.
And here Yechida is also, it sounds like the
different.
B'Pshitas is Lekus versus Eilemis.
So there's a different diagram. There's different diagrams. There's what's the concept of a Lekus and what's the concept of makar l'yesh. The Rebbe is saying it from the same way the Rebbe says before in the Sifri Yud Beis. Mitzadev Shulchan Neshama Chaya, there kol mahusam Inyona is a Lekus. The dakos, they're nice and mokim to mitzias. La'achri yishtalshalus the Maamar and B'Mashtiyasa. The minute there's any tnua not with atzmus, but shtalshalus rabbis ma'id, it's gebinas in this lakum mitzias. Regularly in Chassidus, Atzilus is Eva Gamrei Echad. I'm saying there it's his Galas of Elokus. But it's his Galas of Elokus the way Elokus is Gala in a Tzir of Chacham, in a Tzir of Chesed. So there's a concept. There's concepts besides for the Eibishter himself. Every way you want to say it. Huh?
Even if it's Elokus Pshittus.
Yeah, you're going into the Pratim. I'm saying, like I was saying before, what's the Pshat? When you say that in Atzilus is Chacham v'Chesed, what do you mean to say? You're saying the Eibishter is Pshittus. Because the Eibishter is Pshittus, he could be in his Gala in Chacham, he could be in his Gala in Chesed. It's all the Eibishter Shleimus. Okay, that's a shmuz. This parsha is a shmuz. This is exactly the dargis. You're saying exactly the dargis. This is a shtickle shmuz. The nekuda is that in Atzilus, the fact that Elokus is gal in the tzir of Chachma is a shleimus, is a ma'ila. So Chachma is not nothing over there. If Chachma is garnished, what's the Eidin Savas Mislavish and Chachma? Atzilus, the Eibush is a shalim, and therefore he is kailal any ma'ila. But if Chachma has zero, is no value. I'm saying the Chitzain is Atzilus. The Pnimi is, from the point of view of Ein Sof, is a different Indian. The Eibush is not Mugdar, and therefore he could be revealed in any way. We're saying what should we see the order? The order is common dargis. What's Volman Tom? Is Al-Anwin and Sifidalit?
What about that order about Kabbalah, or that's the second?
We have to go through that order, yeah. We have to go through that order. Let's just see the order. Let's see the order over here of one point you didn't see this point is an important order to see also about why the Rebbe says in the Pnim, the fact that Meida'ani wasn't as Gala, the fact that Meida'ani, Apashas, the reason why Meida'ani doesn't have any shame is because we say Meida'ani, the whole purpose of saying Meida'ani is before Wash Negavasu. To thank the Rebbe should right away for life. And if it would be shame, you'd have to Wash Negavasu before. If the Mesakin given, there should be no shame. But the Rebbe says the time Pnim why Meida'ani has no shame is because Meida'ani is Neveh Mitzad the Kesh of Yechidish B'Nefesh. Yechidish Nefesh is one with Atzmus. So we're dealing with Eibishter himself, not the ways his Gal in Shemus, not the ways his Gal in Tzvius. You reveal Inyona order. In this Kuntres it's order 78. I guess 83. But Pashtus, Mashimidani Mas 83. I don't know why this thing has different. The Pashtus Mashimidani Lein Niska Shum Shem Shelchin Af Shalom Regam Ketim Til Sedaim is because Han Fisholomatim Knas Hashemis. There's no kedusha. You're just speaking a simple, regular language. You're saying thank you without using any kedusha between. אבל פנים מסעניין, מה שאין בשם, כמי השם רזק כדין גלוס עדיין, ולשולה מיילה מבחינת השם יש כבפנים. ולהר מביר בהוד בגלוס עשת אין בשם, same thing we get in the Megillah, that B'chitzeni is ein b'shem because of Malchus, they didn't want it to be translated. But in Pnimis, Al Teres says because it's higher than Shemus. Shemus is already the way Elokus is Gala in certain miles, and this is beyond Shem. But ein says Masha ein b'kedusha. Kizeo b'dugmas tevas and necha v'alikech. But af shemeir la'atzma shalmalim mekol HaShemis mikomake mitzad zegufa ein b'kedusha. Ki tevas and necha ein ekli la'atzma skimmer ha-metzes ala b'vad. Okay. So, if you say the Meda'ani, the Fanecha, we mean Atzmos, so how can you say before until Sedayim? How can you say there's no Kedusha? It's the shame is the air of the shame is Malubish in the Isis. Say in a Chumash. Anechi, the Askaris, the Sefer has to write the Shema. The word Anechi doesn't have to write the Shema. Why? L'chor Anechi is made al Atzmos. But Atzmos is not Malubish, it's not, the Kedusha is not Malubish in the Isis. It's Isis which relate to Atzmos. But the Kedusha, the Kedusha Sa'atzmos is not invested in the letter of Anechi. There's no Askar, there's no Kedusha in the Shem. There's no special Kedusha of Shemis in the word of Anechi. Mashiach in Havaya has Kedusha Sashem more than Anechi. Because the Kedusha, Hagufa, it's an Eir which is Mislabish in Kelim. The male is Mislabish in the Tzura Sa'is of Havaya. Mashiach in Anechi is the Ahatzmis of the Eibush is not connected to Kelim. But you have a word that's made on that. So there's the gate to Meidani. Lefanecha is the Eibush himself. But the Kedusha's Asmos is not invested in the Eisius Lefanecha. The Mele is no Kedusha Meidani Lefanecha. It's true there's no Kedusha in the Nusach Meidani. We're saying it's regular words. Lefanecha means before you. In the words before you relate to the Asmos, but they're not Malubish in these Eisius. Al derech I've been get us that the Kedushas, there's no Kedushas Hashem in the word Anechi. Api Allah. Gam der Anechi is Meir, and he says Anechi is the Eibusher himself. Even up in Nigla, Anechi is him. But there's no kedusha because since we're dealing with the etzem, he's not malubish in the shem. He's beyond his slapshas and kelim. That's when they get to the pnim.
It's just like a reference, you see. We
Right.
need a word to refer to.
Kedushas Hashem is if the kedusha is invested in these isis. We don't. The Rebbe is saying that the din. There's many dinim in writing shemis. The din is not because the shem refers to the Eibusher's name, because in the isis Hashem there is kedusha, and therefore if you write the shem without the shema, there's no kedusha in the shem. That's why there's no Mashegen Anechi is a word. I'm saying it means I, but the Anechi is not Atzmos is not invested in the Kedushas Ha'esis itself. That's the Chiddush Rebbe saying ligab Medani. It's like a whole question. If Medani Lefanecha we mean Etzem, so how could you state in Shchonar that there's no Kedusha in these Ha'esis? We're dealing with Eibusher himself. Rebbe is bringing a dogma from Hilchas Ksivastam.
We always say that.
Huh?
We always say that.
But what?
Whenever it's in Lefanacha, it's always referring to like.
It says that always.
How could you-
Ato. He's saying
Doesn't it ever say even
Whenever
Atzmos?
you say Hashem's name, whenever you say Tefillah without Hashem's name,
you have to wissen when the Rebbe says in Megillah it says HaChassidus. I don't know if it's.
Doesn't it ever say even?
I don't know if we could say that every time it says in davening. I don't know how these things work.
Doesn't it ever say even the word Atzmos only because we just.
Right. I mean here, there says that also. Yeah, but that's nothing to do with here.
Saying the word Anechi doesn't bring out the kedusha. It's just a reference.
Okay, the Rebbe says a weiter word that any word doesn't even refer to Atzmos. Whatever. That's. Or only first two because we have no other way of saying it. Like, it's actually I think told this. Huh? Nicht was nicht Atzmos, nicht Mohos. Oh, so l'chore was immer tashayla. It's not the sadrush. This is very serious beer. The Medani is the Idah v'chidush b'nefesh. So ebazei, why was man Hashas? They only say Shemus. Why didn't they relate to the Eibusher himself? V'zeh shemana Hashas le'amr Medani. After they primis Inyona mash ein ken up in Nikla. Kniska l'siv do. Ish v'zeh ma'ila she'en works l'kan Shama. Yishlemer derech hefsher. Tishes eirus ubita yichidu od afika shekam bishu tomi v'chulu. Mikom kem humei d'chulu. I mean, b'zman Hashas, a Yid woke up in the morning. He was a Kedi Telukus. So the Etzem wasn't expressed. When a Yid's betuma, so when a Yid's in a state of Tuma, when his Kechas Agluim, the Rebbe brings the Dugma State of Chassidus, the Dafke B'deiris of where there's Nisyanis, Mr. Snevesh comes out in a stronger way. B'zman Hashas, the Inyan Ha'etzem wasn't B'izgalis. The aspect of a Yid that is one with Atzmos, that wasn't Begili. What was Begili the Keshem Sat Gilui? He was a Keli Telukus. The Kesher Yichid that wasn't Begili B'zman HaGolos. L'derech Yidua, Shekeicha Mesiris Nevesh, Avam Mesiris Yichid, Begili Yisrael Zan HaGolos, B'frat Begili Yisrael Meshichem Mizvan HaVayis. L'hoyer, Shekeni Gam Negel Chassidus, B'chinas Yichidish, Nizgas L'derech Shechena Davkin, Shelam B'az V'shal Savas, K'mo V'tchel Sasichid. They were saying a strong thing here that means the Yerida and the Helen V'Hester, that's what's Me'eder, the Gili HaYichid, the Gili HaPrimis. It's not just technical, that Chassidus happens to be there was only this guy of the Rebbe is connecting it. Bizman Hashas, the same is when you get to Meidani. Why doesn't it have Shemis? Because it's higher than Shemis. It's higher than Shemis. Why were they deprived of Zan Hashas? The Teres is Zan Hashas, their Pchina wasn't made. So why Dafke in our Der is this Pchina made? Dafke B'Deres Elu, that there's more Nisyanis and there's Tuma. Dafke because there's Tuma and there's a Yerida in Chitzeni Yisraelim. The Yerida in Chitzeni Yisraelim, that's what brings out the Kesher of Yechidah. And our Teres have negated Chassidus. The fact that the world is in a matzah of his alphas, does that raise Guru from the Giddah of Teres of Chassidus? It's not the regular beer, that's a Chiddush. This never brings here. His Eirus ubita Yechidah dafke kasher gam mishu tomi umekom kem humeida. Means what? There says two things. Where is Yechidah expressed that even a Tomei has a Shaykh? That even though he's far, still he's not detached. Mitzad Giluyim, if you're far, you're detached. Mitzad Etzem, there's no such a thing being detached. So where is Etzem? You say, where is it seen the Kesher Abu Ben? That even if the Ben misbehaves, still the father loves him. That's the bitui. Vu gets chareis the Kesher of Yechidah, that even though there's Tumah, Ava became black to Farbun. But there says a word before. His Eirus ubita Yechidah means the Matzav Yoro does Ruf Tareis. The B'chinas Yechidah. That's the code of Kildei Tavshin Tes. A few Maamarim, there's Benachach Tavshin Rafei. The Dafke the Geidel HaYerida brings out the Kesher of B'chinas Yechidah. Yeah, there is nicht Masber does that, but that's. So we'll do Sifidalit.